Jim Cramer, probably the most famous stock market personality and regular contributor to mainstream business news networks like CNBC for close to 20 years, just came out and said Charlie Munger's view on China is misguided. And you guys already know that I'm a huge bull on Alibaba, while simultaneously acknowledging both Alibaba's weaknesses and the inherent risks of investing in China. And I absolutely love when smart people disagree with both myself and, at least in this situation, Charlie Munger as well, as it relates to investing in China. And that's just because I believe that it's important to have a healthy debate with opposing viewpoints, as I just might learn something and identify personal biases. So let's break down Jim Cramer's arguments and see if it's any different to any of the FUD that we've been hearing in the media almost every day. So smash that like button and subscribe if you're new. You're watching More Money. Let's get it. Alright guys, so Jim Cramer was on CNBC about 5 days ago when he stated that once again China is uninvestable. And let's take a step back here. You guys may not remember, but 5 months or so ago, when the for-profit educators were de facto nationalized in China, this is what Jim Cramer had to say about investing in China from that.
What do you make of what's going on in China this morning? And some of the China stocks are just getting whacked. And what that really means is China going after companies that have too much power? Are these, by the way, people have questions about some of the accounting of these companies in China? Is that what's happening? They're trying to...
They are killing us. I mean, they know that we own these stocks, and they're showing no mercy. It does seem like when you turn a profit company into a non-profit company, what you're trying to do is make it so that there are rich people who are just stripped of their wealth. It's very Maoist. It's Stalinist. We tend not to see that. I think these are very serious violations that make us realize that capitalism is not alive in China. And we kidded ourselves that we thought that the party was somehow going to want to join the rest of the world in being capitalistic. They're not. This is a dictatorship, and we're beginning to wonder. I question every one of those companies that's on that list. Any one of them could be vulnerable. It's time. You got to go. You can't own these stocks. I mean, the party may decide tomorrow that Alibaba is charging the people too much. So I don't know. Andrew, I think we're discovering that they were communists. But they were communists all along.
So from that, you can see that Jim Cramer has concluded that capitalism is not alive in China anymore. And I understand that the de facto nationalization of the for-profit tutoring industry in China really bugged a lot of people, and I won't defend how they went about doing it, as I'm not an expert in the situation. But I will say that I did understand from China's perspective that poor parents should not feel like they have to put their kids into these types of programs to keep up with the wealthier ones. And if you looked into what was happening, poor parents were going into debt to pay these fees for these programs that promised dubious results at best. There was growing discontent and unrest amongst the population from it. And I'll be real with you guys, a guy like Jim Cramer really sounds like a hypocrite when he concludes that it's China that is the one that hates capitalism, if this is in fact the reason why he turned sour on investing in the country. Because although he is a lot more experienced, and I will admit he's a lot more intelligent than I am, even I, with my smooth, non-wrinkly monkey brain, remembers that we went after the same practices here in North America with the FTC targeting DeVry and ITT Tech, which is no longer in business. And that wasn't even that long ago. Obama was in office. So now, if you stay at home from school and watch The Price is Right or Judge Judy, you will no longer see those ITT Tech commercials on TV anymore. So I really don't understand how someone would take that example and conclude that the government of China is the only one that hates capitalism and thus is going to destroy the wealth of a nation. Should we not also apply those standards universally? Now, I understand that these are not perfect comparisons, but my point is that I personally don't buy the argument. That's really what I'm trying to say here. So now that we're all caught up on his dislike of investing in China, 5 days ago, he was asked about how he felt about Charlie Munger taking the other side of the trade and investing in China, specifically in Alibaba, and here's what Cramer had to say.
You said that bond king Jeffrey Gundlach, who just had a comment that China is uninvestable, that you agree with him. And I wanted to ask you about that because this morning we learned that Charlie Munger has invested in Alibaba. Obviously, Alibaba's come down in price, but he is making a bet on China. What do you think?
Well, look, there is a sense that the middle class is going to do better in China, so therefore they'll buy more on Alibaba. My problem is that President Xi, there's a really good article, by the way. We've been reading a couple good articles, but just don't. We get the feeling, frankly, that he's a communist, that he's more Maoist than we thought. that he may be the first real totalitarian dictator in a long time, and he's going to be someone who doesn't really care about capitalism. And in that backdrop, I mean, can you imagine a president that feels like that here? And then trying to buy stocks? I mean, I just think it's impossible.
Okay, so he believes that the middle class will do better and thus Alibaba will do better, while simultaneously believing that he does not like investing in China because communism plus reasons. And bless his heart, but the interviewer recognized that Cramer did not really address the question as it related to Charlie Munger, so he pressed him again, and here's what Cramer had to say this time.
So, but look, Charlie Munger's on the other side. He's clearly saying that Alibaba's got a future and a much brighter future. You think that's just a misguided view?
The stock's down a lot, but and certainly anything can bounce. But yes, I think that the course of history is changing. I think we're trying to avoid a very bad Cold War. I think that President Xi has complete contempt for us, complete contempt for shareholders, and very much contemptuous of rich people whom he thinks threaten his power.
Okay, so first of all, he finally answered the question. He does believe that Charlie Munger is misguided, but then he went on to provide his real reasoning behind his views. And his views are just a belief system if he feels like we're headed towards a Cold War with China and the Chinese leadership hates rich people and wealth creation. So basically, all of the baseless media noise that we've been getting for a while now. And here's where I go after the logic. I'm sorry to tell you, Mr. Cramer, but if China wants to double their GDP by 2035, two things have to happen. One, some wealth has to be created. I know it's difficult to understand, but you can't grow your economy without growing the pocketbooks of those that invest to help grow that economy. Rocket science, I know. Two, in order to grow your economy, you need stability, and at all costs, you need to avoid any conflicts that would have material impacts to the nation, such as a Cold War or even an all-out war with the US. And let's be real, guys, I don't remember a single moment in my life where there hasn't been saber rattling amongst superpowers, but the truth is that both populations will suffer greatly if we stop working together. I've said it before on this channel and I'll say it again. We have to play nice in the sandbox together. That goes for the US and that goes for China. So he finishes the interview by admitting that even he believes that Alibaba will do well, but concludes that it won't mean any gains for shareholders. Here's Jim Cramer on that point.
Well, look, Alibaba's going to do well. JD's going to do well. Baidu could do well, but that doesn't mean that their stocks can translate into doing well. I think that the President Xi does not like capitalism, and he's a return to the old style.
So the logic here is that Alibaba will do well, but the shareholders won't. But one problem with that explanation is that if Alibaba is doing well and those cash flows are coming in and Alibaba just continues to buy up the shares, but the share price continues to go nowhere, the company effectively just becomes cheaper and cheaper because the EPS continues to increase organically and from the share buybacks. So it's very possible that by fiscal year 2026, Alibaba will be earning around $20 a share, as implied by Jim Cramer when he stated that Alibaba will continue to do well. And by extension of that logic, that would mean that based on the current share price, which is not expected to go anywhere by Jim Cramer, Alibaba will be trading in the mid-single digits between 3 and 5 times earnings. Look, I like Jim Cramer, and I once again will say that the guy is much smarter than I am, but this logic is beyond lunacy and makes me an even bigger bull on Alibaba. Now let's move into the last part of this interview, and here's where I think the interviewer might actually be brilliant, because he asks a follow-up question that completely, in my opinion, exposes Jim Cramer's nonsensical bias. Here it is.
Is there a price, though, at which you would buy into any of these companies? I mean, we're looking at a screen right now.
Do that? Why would I do that?
I'm just asking the question. I mean, you can make the argument that at some point the price is low enough that the risk that it continues to go lower is reduced. I
can do that, but that's irresponsible of me to do that. I mean, I can't recommend buying stocks in a communist regime that is a totalitarian dictator who's not just human rights, but is doing much more than that to be able to solidify his power. I think it's irresponsible for me to come out here and say, you know what? At 108, it's fully discounted that the man is a terrorist dictator. I can't. At 97, it doesn't matter that he's killing a lot of people and that he's retraining people and there's concentration camps, and don't worry about it. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I can't do it.
So his answer is, why would I do that in some mumble jumble about dictatorships and concentration camps? Look, I agree, and I'm not turning a blind eye on the treatment of Muslims in China. That being said, it looks to me that Jim Cramer just doesn't like investing in China for emotional reasons as opposed to factual ones. I side with Munger here, and I'm not selling. If anything, I'm gonna go further into this name if it crashes below $100 per share. Guys, if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. I do my absolute best to bring you non-hype research-focused content, and with your subscription, YouTube really extends the reach of this channel, which allows us to help more people. And Alibaba isn't the only company that I really like. Check out my work that I did on Cardinal Health, which you can get to right here.